Good evening, everybody, and welcome back. And if tonight is your first night sampling the Diets Demystified sequence, no worries. You can pick this up at any point. It's not mandatory that you watch part one, although part one is helpful. And Liz just let us know that it is indeed on YouTube. It's available now under Wellness Wednesday, Westside Wellness Wednesday. Okay, so last week, I'm going to keep this very brief in terms of just review. We went over the array of diets out there, honed in specifically on the Mediterranean diet. We looked at the keto diet. We looked at intermittent fasting, and we looked at a vegan diet. Those are just some of the many diets out there. We went over the pros and cons of all of them because every program has something to offer. It's not all bad. So there are pros and cons to everything. That is in last week's video and presentation. And my promise to you was to sort of clarify all of that and offer you something that's sustainable for the rest of your life. Habits, because remember, motivation is that thing that we all reach for every minute of every day, and we wait for it to hit us like a storm or something. And we say, when I feel motivated, I'll go do this. When I feel motivated, I'll go do that. And it never comes. Motivation is fleeting. Motivation can often be circumstantial. Motivation is not what keeps us going. It may be what gets us going January 1st, but it is not what keeps us going. It's habits that keep us going. Habits, habits, habits. So we want to remember that and learn some great habits. There are 8 habits that I'm going to present tonight. Ordinarily, when I work with a small group or with individuals, we take our time on these habits. It's minimally 12 weeks to go over these habits, integrate them, and take them into our lifestyles to make changes. Tonight, I cannot do that. I simply want to arm you with the information, and you know how to find me, you know how to reach me, and you can always access me regarding anything that I share tonight. I also want to give credit where credit is due. These 8 habits are from a registered dietitian called Zanya Foco. Zonya is her first name. She's a registered dietitian out of Michigan. Last name is Foco, Foco. And she's often on PBS, and she put together a diet-free program. I have done it, and I have that permission to share it with you, and I'm always excited to share with you reputable programs. So that is what we're going to look at tonight. Hopefully my sharing of material works. It's a little iffy, but we'll make our way through regardless. So the 8 habits, feel free to take notes. And again, if I can get my screen to work, you can absolutely take a snapshot or a screenshot. You have permission to do that. The first habit that we're going to look at is probably not a surprise, and that is to drink water and think before you drink anything else. Drink water and think before you drink anything else. Let me just grab this. Okay. Sorry, friends. I'm sorry. I'm not going to fuss too long on this. If I can make it work, I make it work. Okay. All right. Is anybody seeing that? Probably not. No?
Oh, yeah. So you didn't share your screen, did you? Did you press the little green screen share?
No, I share screen and
Doesn't seem to be working.
no.
Does she have to be a co-host to do that or no?
No,
No.
we did it before. We practiced and
Before.
worked tonight, but it's just being tricky tonight.
Yeah. I'm gonna try one more thing. No. Oh goodness. Okay. Sorry, friends, ain't gonna happen. Okay. We'll make
We
do.
can actually end up downloading the deck that you created and
Oh, okay.
attach it to the thing later.
Okay. Sounds good. So habit 1 is drink water and think before you drink anything else. And there are reminders that I have on these little slides I wanted to show, but nonetheless, we want to remember that our bodies are 60 to 70% water. The brain is 75% water. Our muscles are 75% water. Our blood is 83% water. The liver is 86% water. And the bottom line is that when dehydration sets in, it is hard on all systems. All systems, brain fog, forgetfulness, fatigue, lethargy, poor exercise performance, poor muscle contraction, chronic aches and pains, joint inflammation, increased risk of bladder, kidney, breast, and colon cancers. It's an increase in your perceived appetite. And therefore we gain weight because what we tend to do is reach for food or liquid calories. We're going to talk about that in a second. We tend to reach for liquid calories like a hot chocolate when we are dehydrated, as opposed to drinking water. So we want to reverse that because it truly does become an obstruction to our wellness, not just in an effort to get lean, but all systems. And if we're chronically tired and lethargic and feeling less than, we're not going to possibly make good choices when it comes to food. So here's what Habit 1 has in terms of offering you for some little go-tos. First thing in the morning, drink 8 to 16 ounces of water. First thing in the morning. Friends, we arise dehydrated, and all systems are counting on us to reestablish our fluid balance. And that reestablishment of fluid balance is what influences our choices for the remainder of the day. So the first thing in the morning, before you reach for your coffee, 8 to 16 ounces of water, rehydrate and get your fluid check in order. The next thing to Habit 1 is we want to keep our liquid non-milk calories to 200 calories per day. I'm not encouraging calorie counting. This is the only thing you have to think about in terms of numbers. We tend to ingest a lot of liquid calories. Many people I work with have, when we break down what they take in a day between coffee, a fruity drink, the occasional iced tea, a soda, the wine in the evening, before dinner, after dinner, many people are taking in upwards of 1,100 to 1,200 calories a day in liquid calories. Liquid calories do not fill us up. Liquid calories leave us wanting. They don't hydrate particularly well. And that is it's a big obstruction to managing our weight. I worked with a gentleman who, when I tallied up his intake, he consumed every day in liquid calories, 1,185 calories. He committed to this habit for 1 month and lost 10 pounds. Now, again, remember what I said in series 1, I'm not promising any weight loss. I'm just giving you information about how potent this particular element of Habit 1 is. Drink water and think before you drink anything else. In terms of how frequently to drink, we want to strive to drink 8 ounces of water every 2 hours until bed. That's only 4 ounces an hour. And it sounds monotonous and it sounds, are you kidding me? And the biggest pushback I get is, I don't want to be in the bathroom. You're supposed to be in the bathroom. Everyone who knows me and when I walk into their home, they say, go ahead. I go to the bathroom all the time because I'm drinking water, and that's supposed to be that way. You can assess the quality of your body. It's the efficiency of your kidneys. Look at the color of your urine. If it's yellow, it is loaded down with metabolic waste and you are dehydrated. Right? So 8 ounces of water every 2 hours until bed. When we do this, put all of this together, drink water and think before we drink anything else, keep the liquid non-milk calories to 200. We say non-milk calories because you're allowed to have your milk. I mean, not gallons and gallons, and we want to watch all the coconut milk because it's saturated fat. But if you have, a little milk in your cereal or a little milk even right before bed, that's okay. It's these extra calories from fruit juices and coffees and smoothie maca cappuccino drinks, and they're so pretty. That's what we want to get under control. And when that happens, we can easily lose upwards of 10 to 50 pounds in a year. I told you about the gentleman who lost 10 pounds in a month. You see, this is a fact that dehydrated people eat more food and consume more liquid calories. They have to do something. Their bodies are edging them on to drink, but when their bodies say drink water, they're twisting the message. The brain twists the message and says, I think you're actually hungry. I think you actually need that 12-ounce mocha maca. And we ingest hundreds of calories in doing so, and we don't get satisfied because we're not quenching our thirst and hydrating. And there our bodies are trying to get hydration from a bagel, right? Or a Pop-Tart. So habit 1 is drink water and think before you drink anything else. 8 to 16 ounces of water in the morning once you get up. Liquid non-calories to 200 calories. 8 ounces of water every 2 hours until bed. And finally, at the bottom, it says, be a neat person, N-E-A-T. That stands for someone who moves a lot throughout the day. NEAT stands for non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Big word. Non-exercise activity thermogenesis. And that simply means that we want you to move so that you are somebody who burns a lot of calories that have nothing to do with your purposeful exercise. In many of our other Wellness Wednesdays, I've talked about folks who really kick it at the gym 6 days a week for like 90 minutes, and they have all the same health challenges as those who don't exercise. It's because they're kicking it for 90 minutes and doing nothing for the rest of the day but sitting. So non-exercise activity thermogenesis, be a neat person and move more throughout the day. All right, that's habit 1. Habit 2 is include breakfast every day and stop eating 2 to 3 hours before bedtime. This is big. Every day include breakfast and then stop eating 2 to 3 hours before bedtime. And why do we want to do that? The big reason is that I want to teach you how to eat to match your body's metabolism. So all of us, we will burn the greatest number of calories between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. Between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m., that's actually a fat burning stage in the body called lipolysis. Lipo means fat, lysis means to break down or burn. All right, so we want to match our body's metabolism by saying, okay, the most active time it is 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., and we want to eat during that fat burning stage of lipolysis. Eat between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. However, most people eat the majority of their calories between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. And think about late dinners. Think about a couple little bits before dinner, maybe a snack and a glass of wine. Think of snacking as you're watching your favorite TV show after dinner. Sometimes we take a little something right before bed. There are folks who get up in the middle of the night and eat. And that falls into the category of eating from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. And at that point, we are in a fat storing mode in the body, and it's called lipogenesis. Lipo means fat, genesis means the making of. So between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m., our body is in a fat storing stage called lipogenesis. And we're going to naturally retain more calories and store them as fat because we're not eating to meet our metabolism. So this is a real potent element of this habit, because just by eating breakfast and shifting the majority of your calories to earlier in the day, you can match your metabolism and begin to see some weight loss. Including breakfast also means that you'll have better control at lunch and dinner. When we don't include breakfast, and many people don't, they don't eat. And many people will say, but I'm not hungry for breakfast. And those are the individuals who 9.5 times out of 10 eat between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. So if you wake up and you say, I'm not a breakfast person, I would just challenge you to say, when am I eating the majority of my calories? Is it after 6 p.m.? Is it 2 to 3 hours before bedtime? You're not going to be hungry for breakfast. It changes your metabolic mode. Okay. So as we stop the late night eating, and we stop the excessive liquid calories from alcohol that can happen at night, we stop all of those little snacks before and after dinner and right before bedtime in the middle of the night. Doing so honors our metabolic rhythm, and that can mean up to 30 to 50 pounds of weight loss in a year if this habit is a challenge for you. If this habit is a challenge for you, it's a very potent application of something that's pretty simple to do and makes a massive difference. Let me give you a tip when it comes to breakfast, because I know a lot of you are curious about cereals, granola bars, and eating some of that classic morning sweet munchy stuff. What you want to pay attention to when it comes to cereals is that it's high in fiber and low in sugar. And I'm going to give you a specific number that you can jot down if you're interested. So when you read your labels, and we do want to read labels, the breakfast cereals that you like, please make sure that for every serving, and it'll say right on the panel, there's at least 3 grams of fiber, and no more than 8 grams of sugar per serving. Those are your magic numbers when it comes to, can I eat cereal? And yes, you may. You just have to pick the right one. You'd be surprised how many cereals have 14 grams of sugar per serving. You want to aim for 8 grams, nothing more than 8 grams, and at least 3 grams of fiber in that cereal. And that's a healthy choice. Right? So that's include breakfast and stop eating 2 to 3 hours before bedtime. A lot of habits. So I'm just going to arm you with the most potent bits of it. Habit 3 is eat often and include a fruit and vegetable every single time you eat. Eat often and include a fruit or vegetable every time you eat. And I'll go over the whys behind that. First of all, when we eat often, let me tell you that that means eating every 2 to 3 hours or so, every 2 to 3 hours, because it keeps our blood sugar levels stable. We never get into that mode of starvation where we then are set up for a binge. And remember that a binge is simply a physiological response to starvation. You've gone too long and you're not going to have control, and that can elicit a binge. So we want to eat often, AKA every 2 to 3, max 4 hours, to avoid binge eating, but it also keeps our metabolisms elevated. You see, every time we eat and chew food, masticate, digestion begins in the mouth. Every single time we eat, our metabolic rate goes up. Every single time we eat, chew, swallow, metabolic rate goes up. It's called the thermic effect of food. And we expend anywhere from 10 to 15% of our calories through that process of digestion. Your body's releasing digestive enzymes. There's metabolism there. So it's helpful to eat often. But why we want to include a fruit or vegetable every time we eat is that it is the only way, eating a fruit or vegetable every single time we eat is the only way to meet the recommended intake of 7 to 13 servings of fruits and vegetables a day. The recommendation is high. It equates to health, it equates to vitality, and very few people meet that. Very few people meet that. But those who adopt this habit and say, okay, I'm going to eat often, every 2 to 4 hours, max 4, and every time I eat, there'll be some kind of fruit and or vegetable going in my mouth, they can get that in then. They can meet those daily requirements. And the other thing it does is that when you are favoring all of that produce every time you eat, you are getting high fiber, more fiber in your diet. You're getting a lot of water content. That's healthy. It's filling you up without filling you out. It takes time to chew. We want to chew slowly and really masticate our food. And it gets those fruits and veggies in for the day. So when it comes to eating often, and including our fruit or vegetable every time, know that it is absolutely appropriate to eat 3 main meals per day: breakfast, lunch, dinner. And at those meals, you want to have what's called all of your macronutrients present. That means some complex carbohydrate, some lean protein, and healthy fat. We'll get into the fat in a minute. At your big meals, your main meals, complex carbohydrate: a potato, not potato chips; a sweet potato, not sweet potato fries. Okay, a complex carbohydrate, they're not evil. A lean protein, a healthy fat, and of course your fruits, your vegetables or fruits. You're also entitled to 2 to 3 snacks throughout the day. And what I often say there is, you're probably thinking, do I have to have fruits or vegetables at that too? Yes, every time you eat. It's the way you'll get everything in that you need, the recommended daily allowance, and it will, I promise you, you won't be like this, up and down on a roller coaster. And at your snacks, aim for protein, protein and produce. Your snacks, protein, produce: a hard-boiled egg, some carrots, hummus, and celery, a couple small pieces of lean cheese, and grapes. You get my drift? Snacks are protein and produce. Beef jerky and some, I have a lot of clients who just love beef jerky for women who love beef jerky for protein, and it's lean. And they have carrots with it. So every meal you sit down to, your two to 3 snacks, protein and produce. Your main meals, complex carbohydrate, protein, healthy fat, and your produce. And that can drop a whole load of weight because you're going to be filling up on all that produce. All right, habit 4. Tame your sweet tooth and naturally eat as little sugar as possible. I'll say that again. If you have a sweet tooth, I'm going to give you the secret to taming your sweet tooth and naturally eat as little sugar as possible. I'm not going to go, I'll keep it simple. Your sweet craving cure: I have tried this myself, and I've tried it on multiple other people. Eat a piece of whole, real fruit, not juice, not canned stuff. Eat fruit and drink water every 4 hours throughout the day. It'll be gone. It'll be gone. Fruit, a piece of fruit and water every 4 hours. And you could couple your protein in there if you're thinking, well, what the heck? How am I supposed to get all this in? Remember last week I said that our brains crave, they need glucose, and we talked about that process called gluconeogenesis. If we don't take carbohydrate in, we don't get glucose. So our brains then make a phone call and say, yo, I need sugar. What's the deal? They're on a high protein diet again. And your liver says, okay, what do I do to help you? And the brain says, make it. The brain needs sugar. If we again twist the message, we think, ooh, I'm craving something sweet. It means Snickers. It means Oreos. It means Teddy Grahams. It means have fructose, real fruit sugar, a whole piece of fruit with water. Your brain will get the sugar it's actually craving. We're twisting the message around and saying, give me sugar, sweets. Yeah? So fruit and water every 4 hours. How do you dial down your sweet acuity in addition to that? Know that you can look forward to 2 small sweet treats a day. 2 small sweet treats a day. They can be part of your repertoire. Just watch the serving size. And if it's a very high sugar, high fat treat, I apply this to myself at weddings or like special occasions. I do not do this every night. This part won't work and count as a sweet treat. Let's say there's a piece of birthday cake, wedding cake, pumpkin pie, whatever. I mean, for holidays, just eat it, enjoy it. But if you are up against chronic sweets, let's say there's a donut in the office, somebody made something, crumb cake, have it, HALVE, have it, cut it in half, and you can have it. And you have to decide whether that's doable for you, because I understand that some people eat that half and they have to go back for the rest. Sugar's addictive. We talked about it last week, but that's your go-to. Have it, HALVE, and you can have it. And here's what will help you eat just half. Have fruit with it and water. Put that all together. Your whole fruit, water, and that sweet treat you want. You won't want the rest. You won't want the rest. I have seen this happen to people, and it's been applied. All of this dials down your sweet acuity and your desire for sugar, because no one can be well on an abundance of sugar. It's not possible. Yeah? We doing okay? Okay. Habit 5. This is where we want to find the fat and know the difference between the good fats, the bad fats, and the ugly fats. Okay? So when we find the fat, here's what we're looking for. There are 3 kinds, and we call them the good, the bad, the ugly. Your good fats are unsaturated. Unsaturated, most fish, nuts, olive oil, canola oil, avocados, salmon, unsaturated fat, tuna fish. Those are your good, healthy fats. And excellent, except for the olive oil and canola oil, excellent sources of protein. So good fats, unsaturated. Your bad fats are saturated. And that is, I'm sorry, I know we talked about it last week. Saturated fat is anything coconut and palm derivative. Coconut oil, coconut milk, coconut anything, palm oils, all saturated. All saturated. Those are considered the bad fats. And remember, the more saturated fat we eat, the more cholesterol we will produce. So you can be a vegan. You can be someone who doesn't touch animal product. And cholesterol is only in animal product because plants don't have a liver to make cholesterol. Only animals do. But if you are eating saturated fat, and a lot of vegans do, you will produce a ton of cholesterol. It's that coconut stuff. So you eat it in moderation. You don't have to throw it all out. Just be mindful. And I'm not going to say how many grams of that saturated fat can I have a day. This is about freeing you from scales, food programs, weighing, measuring. No. If you follow these elements within the habit, they create an invisible force that promotes your health, your wellness, management of your glucose numbers, management of your triglycerides, management of your cholesterol, and management of your weight. You don't have to go to bed every night wondering, well, how many calories did I take in? How many fat grams did I take in? Was it too much saturated? When you apply these habits and the little to-dos within them, it's the work. They're doing the work for you. It sets you free. So your bad fats are saturated and your ugly fats are anything trans or anything hydrogenated. If you see hydrogenated vegetable oil or partially hydrogenated oils, it's in a lot of peanut butters, you got to go natural. Trans fats are really nasty, and trans fats will be in all your fried foods. I know. It's all in all fried foods, trans fats. All right, so the good fat, unsaturated. Bad fat, saturated. Ugly fat is anything trans or hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated. And here's the secret: eat Mediterranean, because it's real food with good fat. Olives, olive oil, salmon, fish, nuts, seeds. Yeah. And depending on how much you are a fried person, you can lose a boatload of weight when you apply this habit. We're on habit 6, friends. And habit 6 is replace your processed foods with wholesome, close to the farm food. Shop natural. That's, again, you can just say to yourself, think Mediterranean diet. Mediterranean diets replace all these processed foods with whole foods. It's a balanced and varied diet. We discussed last week how that diet gives you all of your nutrients. It doesn't skim you. It doesn't come up short. It favors beans. Beans suck up cholesterol like crazy and just remove it from your body. So does oatmeal. You want a sponge to grab all that cholesterol, good and bad, and it just empties out into your feces. Sorry. Beans and oatmeal. With habit 6, when we replace all the processed food, we will be doing what we talked about last week. Remember those 4 rules that will never change about an ethical program of nutrition? We will be eating a diet that is balanced, high in fiber. I'm sorry, let me rephrase that because this is the way I say it. We will be eating a balanced diet that is low in saturated and trans fats. It will be low in sugar and high in fiber. When we apply this habit and, or if you will, eat Mediterranean, you will be eating a balanced diet always that's naturally low in the bad fats, that's naturally low in sugar, and that is high in fiber. You don't have to worry about nutritional deficiencies. How are we doing on time? I want to leave time for questions. Okay. Habit 7. This is the one that is the most challenging for all people. I will preface it and you'll understand it when I say it. Habit 7 says to eat until you are no longer hungry and stop eating to the point that you feel like a beach ball, like a lead beach ball, that you feel stuffed, that you feel as if that food is right here. It is basically eat until you are no longer hungry. And I appreciate how hard this is because this is a hard one to learn when you've been eating disordered. Your eating is based on rituals. It is based on numbers. It is not based on anything natural. And many of us don't have to be in the eating disordered camp to say, this is hard. And it is because we've been accustomed to eating such huge portions. Availability of food is everywhere. It's copious. And even our endocrine systems have gotten acclimated to releasing early on an excess of digestive proteins to prepare for large meals. We've changed even how our systems function. They have begun to anticipate large, big, copious. Sometimes people's GERD sets in with one bite full of food and it's just been swallowed. We eat fast, we eat too much, we eat too quickly. So we want to learn how to eat until no longer hungry. And I'm going to give you some tips on that. Habits 1 through 6, jot this down. Habits 1 through 6 have taught you what to eat. They have taught you to drink water, include breakfast, stop eating 2 to 3 hours before bedtime, to include a fruit or vegetable every time you eat, how to tame your sweet tooth, how to find the fats, how to replace processed foods with wholesome foods. Habits 1 through 6 have taught you what to eat. Habit 7 teaches you when and how much to eat. And that's a tough one. It is the most challenging habit. But I want to remind you of what you may have forgotten, and that is we have been born with an internal gauge that can be trusted. We don't trust it anymore because we eat for all the wrong reasons. We eat out of stress. We eat because we're lonely. We eat because we're ticked. We eat because we're happy. There are all these things that are dictating how and when we should eat and how much. We eat out of guilt, all kinds of things. Think of when a baby is fed. Go back to when you had a baby or someone you loved had a baby and you witness how a baby is fed. We feed them and we feed them. And there's a point at which, whether that food prepared for them is finished or not, that they do this. They pull away. And we keep taking the spoon and, getting the bottom and every last bit and forcing it. and they're pulling away and pulling away and pulling away. And this doesn't make us bad parents and aunts and grandparents. It's just what we've been learned, especially as adults. Our bodies were born with a mechanism to stop, to know when enough is enough. And somewhere along the way, it got distorted. It got distorted. So how do you know when you've had enough? Think of a scale from 1 to 10. And I want you to eat only until you are I want you to eat only when you are physically hungry. And that will be a level 3 on the scale from 1 to 10. A level 1 and 2 means you're ravenous, you haven't eaten in 6 hours, you're out of control, you're cranky, you're dizzy, and you're probably going to binge. You're probably going to eat very fast. You're going to eat more than you need. A level 3 is when you can sit and say, I feel my stomach growling, but it's not pangs. It doesn't hurt. I'm not shaking because my blood sugar level is so low. And I would not qualify myself as feeling starved. So when we want to eat when we're only physically hungry, and that's basically the stomach growling, level 3. Level 3. And we want to stop eating at a level 6. That is when your body is physically full. You don't feel it here. You don't feel it here. You don't sit at the table longer than you need to and just pick on the food because it's there. You don't feel like a lead balloon is sitting in your stomach. When you leave the table or finish your meal at a level 6, you initially have to get used to learning that you're going to be still feeling a little hungry psychologically and physically. You're not going for stuffed anymore. You're not going for stuffed. Okay, so those are your magic numbers. Eat when you're at a level 3. There's a physical need, not because you smelled something really good. Stop eating when you're at a level 6, when you're physically full, not psychologically full. Physically full. And finally, when it comes time to eating until no longer hungry and controlling that mindless eating, we want to look at replacing mindless eating with a non-food activity. And there are all kinds of things out there that you can read. I would, again, if I were working with you privately or in a small group where I launched this for like 12 weeks somewhere, we would be going through a lot. We would be spending a lot of time on each of these examples, on each of these habits, and applying some real practical work. Okay, no food rewards. All right, that's habit 7. And finally, habit 8. Become an everyday mover and exerciser. In prior Wellness Wednesdays, I've talked about the difference between movement and exercise. Movement is what refers to all of our non-exercise activities. Do you remember habit 1? It's what makes you a neat person. Lots of movement throughout the day is your non-exercise activities. It's non-exercise activity thermogenesis, the number of calories you burn that have nothing to do with your workout. You need that, but you also need to be a purposeful exerciser so that you get cardiovascular stamina, you don't lose bone and muscle, you reduce aches and pains. So both elements matter, and it's at this stage that we want to say, I want to be an everyday mover. I want to be an everyday exerciser. Now, these 8 habits, drink water and think before you drink anything else. Include breakfast and stop eating 2 to 3 hours before bedtime. Eat often, include a fruit or vegetable every time. Tame your sweet tooth and naturally eat as little sugar as possible. Find your fats, the good, the bad, the ugly. Replace processed foods with whole foods, Mediterranean diet. Eat until no longer hungry. And everyday movement and exercise, this is a lifestyle. This, when applied, not perfectly, just applied, always trying to do the next best thing, is what creates this invisible force within you that takes care of the calorie counting, as I said earlier. It takes care of the fat grams. You don't weigh, scale, and measure. You no longer follow scripted plans that are made by dietitians or even me. I don't do it anymore. I won't do it. I do not prepare menus for people. I will not do it because it keeps you captive. This allows you to have a life, not take your food from your food program and ask the waiter at the restaurant to heat it up. That's not living. That's not living. It's to set you free. So it's a lot, I know. I mean, the reality is, Lizzie, I could take each of these habits and we could do a Wellness Wednesday, an hour on each. It's meant to be taken bit by bit. But when you apply each of these habits in a systematic way, and they are not meant to be jumped around, start at habit 1, even if you think you drink enough water, and even if you think before drinking anything else. Go in that order. And remember that, friends, part of habit 8, to become this everyday mover and somebody who seeks this pattern of wellness, is that you're getting rid of this urgency thing, this quick thing, this fast thing, because moving fast is not the same as going somewhere. You can move fast and end up nowhere. We want to go in the right direction. And my students hear me say this all the time. They're probably, if they're on, they're saying she's going to say it again. More isn't better. Better is better. Faster isn't better. Better is better. Skinnier isn't better. Better is better. Getting well is better. And there was a really cool guy some 2,000 years ago who asked an invalid by the healing pool, do you want to get well? Do you want to get well? And that's the question I ask myself. It's why I do what I do. And I ask you. And if you want to get well, I'm here. Part of it is hooking up with an active community that allows you support. And let's see what happens when we don't give up.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. Thank you so much. Friends, you may have questions. There are a couple that are being popped on there. How do you feel about the European habit of eating your largest meal midday?
Yeah, that completely favors what was discussed in that habit of honoring your metabolic rhythm. Yeah. We want to be eating the majority of our calories when our metabolic rates are at their highest, between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. And those European countries that favor that rhythm of eating do not have weight issues.
But it's definitely not all of them. And I was just thinking.
Not all of them. Spain is, like in Spain, they eat really late.
Yeah. So, this is one of the things that stuck in my mind is that how difficult it is to adhere to that 6 p.m. kind of, don't eat anything after 6 p.m. And how does that kind of work with intermittent fasting? Like if we find ourselves, you kind of asked us to take a 12-hour break with not eating and to try to make it between the 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. time frame. But is there a way, I guess I'm just wondering, for so many folks who don't get home from work until after, find themselves unable to actually have any kind of evening, even if it's a light supper, they're going to have to do that past 6 o'clock.
Yeah. And the 6 o'clock isn't etched in stone. That's just honoring your metabolic rhythm. And it is hard. A lot of people, my husband doesn't get home till we eat many times after 6, but we eat that meal. We eat it slowly. We get that produce in there with it. And once the meal is done, it's done. There's no going back for snacks. There's no sneaking something before, a little something before bed. It's trying to give yourself 2 to 3 hours before bedtime. Think of it that way. Give yourself, that's part of that habit. You want to not eat at least 2 to 3 hours before bedtime. So let's say you're eating at 7, but you go to bed at 9:30. That's a tough one. That's really tough. Your meal's going to have to be light. Forget the weight issue. That will be a challenge, but that is hard digestively. I'm not sure I could even sleep or lie down.
If you were trying to digest a large meal.
That contributes to a lot of GERD.
Okay. So, and then how does eating every 2 to 3 hours, does it override the rule or the suggestion of eating only when you're hungry? So say I'm getting to that 2 to 3 hour mark and oh, she said to have a piece of fruit and some water.
Mhm.
I'm just not hungry.
Right. And there are a lot of reasons not to be hungry. It's, it can be, it can vary. Like if when I'm stressed, it goes to my stomach. That's just where I feel it. If
Mhm.
there's something stressful going on, I'm not going to be in rhythm with this. I physically can't eat. It's hard.
Mhm.
So what you want to look at then is say, okay, in that habit, in one of the habits, Jen was talking about matching your rhythm, eating often because it keeps your metabolic rate up. That will happen. You'll probably have more of a desire to eat every 2 to 3 hours if you're not eating large, copious amounts. And if you don't,
So
just make
smart.
sure, yeah. And if you are in doubt, just step back. Maybe you need to remove yourself from your screen. Maybe there's some stress that's tying you up in knots, and you're not going to have a fair estimate of your true hunger. Uh, you want to then just step back and say, okay, where am I on the food scale? On that, I'm sorry, the hunger scale. Am I feeling my stomach growl? And if you're not, don't force feed it, but just be mindful. If you start ticking around 4 and 5 hours, that's a long time.
Mhm, mhm. Okay. Can you talk to us a little bit about the oils? Because there's such confusion about which oils are healthy or not. So you said olive oil, you said canola oil, which surprised me because I thought that was not a baddie. And then we've been seeing so much avocado oil.
Mhm. So
So,
canola oil is considered unsaturated. I don't use it. I use avocado oil and I use olive oil.
oh, okay. So avocado
Avocado,
oil, which just feels like it's everywhere all
yeah,
of a sudden.
avocado, anything is unsaturated. That's a healthy
Okay,
fat. That's a
good.
healthy fat. But I'm sorry, the organic palm oils, or sorry, coconut oils, I looked it up after.
I know you.
I
I
know, because I want to make sure I shared truth. Brian, I looked it up and like 1 tablespoon has 12 grams of saturated fat. It's awful.
Oh, believe me, I ran right to the cabinet and I looked at my light coconut oil. I think I might have even sent you a picture. Yeah, you
Yes,
were
you do.
right. You were right. Okay, Brian is asking, what are some ways of avoiding psychological eating issues? Eating when sad, happy, bored, driving on a trip, engaged in watching a great movie, a football game, cheering at a ball game, on a business trip, all great examples. There are so many food triggers out there. And what about emergency chocolate and vacation splurges and coffee hour for those of us who,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
the thing is when you incorporate these habits, um, you're less likely to worry about, oh, vacation, because these habits I find to be, they were really a godsend for me in terms of getting out of calorie counting and so forth. Um, I find them very liberating. There's a lot of room. There isn't the weighing and the scaling, and um, you can always turn to, if you're feeling an emotional trigger. First of all, identify it. Before you're reaching for that, are you feeding an emotion? And if that's taking place, I understand that that's a very real thing, but I would encourage having um, a little chat with yourself, because that moment of giving in and feeding the emotion is never going to satisfy. It just perpetuates the cycle. And some people call it a win, like, I can have my ice cream, I can have my Oreos, and the win will never satisfy. It always comes up short. What I often tell people is that if you absolutely have to eat, Super Bowl parties and, a movie, sitting on the couch, change what you're eating. Change what you're eating. I mean, there are healthier alternatives to, Doritos and buffalo wings and all that kind of stuff. When you're clearly engaged in an emotional struggle and you want to respond to that with eating, that's a learned habit. So some of the part of this is trying to get you out of that habit, and try moving. Get up and move 5 or 10 minutes. It will change things. It will change things. If the stuff isn't in the house, you can't eat it. So that's part of the battle as well. Um, I worked with a woman who had a lot of food triggers, and everything that she was turning to was always in the house. If it's in the house, you'll eat it. I'm not any different. If there's a sleeve of Oreos in there, I might give you my cat for a week, like in exchange for the Oreos. It's temptation. It's just screaming at you. But drink the water, drink before anything else. Drink and make sure you're not just dehydrated and responding poorly to like a hydration cue. And you're thinking, I must.
We have, you have said that to us before in past programs. We have heard that most recently from another program we had that, and which was such a surprise. And I'm repeating because I think it's so important that this dehydration can often mask as I'm hungry. And it sounds like you're not saying don't eat. You're saying first hydrate and then see what's attractive to you to want to eat, because it will more than likely be different, which I think is true.
It will.
Brenda's asking a great question about tea. Is tea considered liquid that you can count as your hydration?
So what kind of tea? Tea like a hot cup of tea?
Yes, plain tea. No sugar, just plain tea. Either green tea or black tea.
But
Have at it.
I do think though the caffeine can be dehydrating.
Yes, I was
So
just gonna say you can
it
have
should be
at it, but it's
herbal tea.
caffeinated. Yeah.
Well,
The more caffeine you drink, the more dehydrated you're going to get, and you're going to set yourself up for misinterpreting that cue.
so that's one of the 200 then. You said keep 200.
No, so your tea, I'm not worried about the calories in your tea. The black tea that you're describing has no calories. It has caffeine.
Okay.
That's
All right.
caffeine. We just want to keep our
Caffeine then. You shouldn't have the caffeine then.
it's the caffeine because it's going to dehydrate you.
So I think what you had said was that you could have coffee or tea in the morning, or if you want to have a little, but all throughout the day, if you want to turn to tea as part of your hydration, it should be herbal tea.
Yeah,
Or
herbal
something without
tea.
a caffeine.
Watch your caffeine for a million reasons, but also
Yeah.
because it dehydrates you and you're going to mess the cue up.
Right. Okay.
So thank you.
You're welcome. And Brian, just a little piece too, try elements of the habits if you are tempted to eat. If you got to eat something, eat protein and produce. Hummus and carrots. Don't buy the stuff that's tempting. Don't have it in the house. Move for 5 minutes before you make a decision. Drink 8 ounces of water before you make that decision. I'm never going to tell anybody not to. Just check in with those other elements and make sure there's not something else going on.
Yeah. So you're not saying, okay, just absolutely like that the chocolate bar is still calling to you. Maybe you'll end up having half of it, not the whole thing. Who knows?
Well, like we talked about dialing down your sweet acuity, have it and you can have it. HALV.
Oh, right. Have it. Oh, I like that. Right. You did say
But
that.
have it with all these halves, but have it with fruit. Oh, yes. Fruit. Have sweet with fruit and water. You won't crave it. It kicks your sugar craving.
Okay. Chocolate covered strawberry.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yes. And Deborah was saying that, she took the death of her mom hard, very hard, and that does often become a trigger. Yeah, I think that is very normal to depend on food as a comfort source.
Yeah, especially the sugar.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is. And, that's where you kind of take a step back and ask yourself, is this serving me? This response that I have to food as my companion, as my comfort, as my stress relief, is that serving me? Do I feel well?
And sometimes writing out how you're feeling, writing down the feelings of how you miss, in this case, you miss your mom, or what you would love to say to her if she were still here. Sometimes those activities, because I liked the idea that you gave us about replacing eating with a non-eating activity.
Food activity. Yep.
There are so many. Journaling is often something, letter writing, reading, taking a little hike up and down the stairs, or some kind of
And may I leave you with one more tip?
Yes.
And Brian, this is also something you can use. This is something I use. For those of you who, I have a client, I'm working this system with her. She's doing extremely well, but 3 days a week, because of demands and her family, she has food that is catered and brought in. Delicious food, but not lean food. Eggplant rollatini and lasagnas and chicken parmesan and all that stuff. Not a lot of vegetable with it, just primarily your classic Swedish meatballs and all that kind of stuff. So she says, what do I do? My family eats at it. They have at it, and there are no problems with that. They're young boys and so forth. She said, what do I do? Do I make myself something? I said, nope. You eat what they're eating, but go to the dinner table, and maybe they'll take suit at some point. They'll follow through at some point. And you, on those kinds of nights when the food is heavier, Brian, when the food is heavier, eat from a salad plate and not from a dinner plate.
Mm.
I'm not telling you not to eat it. Just you'll eat less of it then.
Mm.
So when we get pizza, I have to be careful with pizza now because of gluten and dairy, but I'll just say if we get like real pizza, good hearty thick crust pizza, I make my husband and me a salad, each a salad on our dinner plate, and our salad plate has a slice of pizza. It slows you down because, right, what do? We take two, we gorge, we chew it slowly. And I am never saying to him nor myself, I can't go back for a second piece. But I used to eat 4 slices of pizza. I didn't eat a salad with it. This is how you can eat some of the things you love. And just by changing the size of the plate it's on, cereal included, you will change how much you're eating, and it naturally controls your calories.
Okay, so we have just one more minute, and somebody is asking, will you be offering this 12-week? Do you teach this as a 12-week course, or were you saying that you might like to? She was asking if she could perhaps participate.
Yeah, so I teach this privately with people, but Lizzie and I can talk, and it can be launched at, it's great to launch it at a church, it's great to launch it at a school, and offer that up as, that's where we continue support. That's where we surround ourselves with like-minded people who have common struggles, and we do this together in community. Everything is harder alone. I don't think I have to tell you that. Everything. But when we're in it together, so much more doable. So yes, I can do that. I haven't done it, but I can.
Okay, well, that's good. So folks know how to reach me and Jen. We can keep in touch with that and maybe offer some kind of Zoom or in person or something course. But that's our time for today, friends. Thank you so much, Jen, for being with us. It's always just such a pleasure, and I took so many notes. It's really exciting.
Thank you, friends, and thanks for understanding my
Yes.
challenges. When we send this out, I'll give Liz these handouts.
Yeah, I have a way that I can attach it to the YouTube or send it to folks. Friends, next week, I remind you that we will be live in the sanctuary. You can join us if you're in the area. You can live stream like you're watching church. We're going to have a art therapist with us doing watercolors. And so if you're going to be at home, you're going to have to prep some materials. And she's going to take us through like a meditation. And this could be one of the things you replace your eating activity with, by learning watercolors and how it can relax you. But for now, we say good night. And as you head into your week, we hope that you are well.
You well.
Take care. Be well.